about the sea, there is no beginning and no end. Ships may alter their shape and their speed, new techniques may come and go, but the sea itself remains, as it always was, unchanged. As with the sea, so with the men who fish it. The ships and the methods change, the hazards of fishing do not. Each generation that grows up and goes to sea must learn to master them afresh.
My name is Harry Jackson, and this is my third trip as a learner deckhand. My dad was a skipper of a trawler. Mum knows it's in my blood, but she doesn't really like me going to sea. She puts up with it, though. As for me, well, I like to get away and I like to get back. Dad used to tell me the sea's right there in an Englishman's blood. Well, perhaps he's right. All I know is, when it's time to get down to the ship, I feel I want to get out to sea again, as soon as I can. And I know the sea's the life I want most of all. This is going to be my life, with its smell of fish and tar and oil, just as it was my dad's before me. And I'm going to stay in it until one day I'm skipper myself. I still get down to the Neptune ahead of the rest. I suppose when I'm an old hand at the game, I'll roll down to the ship just before she's shoving off, like the other deckies do. These are the deckies. Some of them not much older than I am. To them, it's no thrill to be going to sea again as it is to me. It's simply a job, but they like the money well enough. And so will I when I get to become bosun of a ship like the Boston Neptune. Like Ken, our bosun, as he comes aboard with the chief engineer, on foot. And there's Don, the second engineer, in a smashing car. I'll have one of those someday. Now we've only got about 10 minutes before we shove up. And here come the rest of the crew. There's old John, the oldest deckhand of all. He's already knocked a bit of sea sense into me. These are going to be my mates for the next 10 days to a fortnight. Pat, the winchman, seems to have found his sea legs already. Here's the old man. I'd better get out of his way.
Yes, I'm the skipper, all right. And when I get down to the ship, there's no more messing around. It's time to be off. There's no bull about taking a trawler to sea. We're not sailors in fancy uniforms. We're trawlermen with a job to be done.
Let go, fellas! Let go up! All clear, Boston Neptune.
Every time we draw away from the dockside and head out towards the locks, there's always people waving us goodbye. I don't know what makes them do it. There's nothing out of the ordinary in ships leaving Fleetwood. They do so every solid day of the week. Yet every day, down they come to the dockside or the front to see us off, to wish us good luck. And sometimes, you can take it from me, you need all the luck you can lay your hands on, however calm it is leaving port. Perhaps we don't say a lot, but we're still very glad to see them there. None of us ever know what sort of a trip it's going to be. And although by now we're too far away to pick out the faces, I know the kid's mother will be there to see him go. And my wife, too. She's watched me go out every time for as long as I can remember.
we make our way past the island off the west of Scotland, we've got a clear day and perhaps longer to get our nets and other gear ready as we steam towards the fishing ground. None of the deckies know exactly where we are going. We don't care. It's the skipper's job to find the fish, ours to have everything ready for shooting the first trawl. So as we plug on in nice, calm weather, I have a chance to find out how to fill a needle. This first day or two at sea, when there isn't a lot to be done, I get the free run of the ship, and I've got a whole pile of things I've still to find out about. Radar, for instance. It seems like magic to me, to be able to see where you are in any kind of weather. Though I haven't a clue how it works, and nowadays on the bridge of a modern trawler, it seems to be just another gadget, and everyone seems to take it for granted. Then I get a chance to handle a ship myself, to set a course and hold it. And trying to keep that compass course steady is not as easy as you think. While I'm finding my way around, the rest of the crew, except for the watchkeepers, stay on the mess deck. They eat, sleep, or read as they feel like. They know it all, and whenever they see me, they start to fill me up with tall yarns about fishing and the sea. And of course I believe everything they say. Well, almost. It's Cookie was about the toughest time on the journey out, with the usual free meals and fresh bread to bake every day. For the rest of us, it's just take it easy while you can. The old man will soon have us hard at it. Of course, they make me a sort of tea boy. Tell me I've got to do something for my keep. I soon get a regular round worked out. And amongst other things, it certainly taught me the quickest way to get about the ship. Old Sparks, stuck up there in his little cabin behind the bridge all the time, he's always glad to see me. And perhaps the skipper is too. But of course he's not going to show it. But what I look forward to most of all, though, are the trips down to the engine room whenever the chief happens to be doing watch. He knows I'm really interested. So over a cup of tea and above the din of the diesels, he answers any questions I can think up and tries to explain how everything works. And all the time we're getting nearer where the real hard work is going to start. To the deckies, I'm simply the tea boy. But my thoughts are all on the start of the fishing. No one else knows it. So far as I'm concerned, I'm well on the way to becoming a skipper, with a trawl of my own. At least that's my favourite dream, when the day's work is done and it's time to turn in for a good night's sleep.
That's one point of view. It was mine, too, when I first went to sea. Now I'm a skipper. Well, the glamour of fishing to me is to see these ponds they're rigging down there crammed full of fish, no torn nets, a fair voyage home, and a good price for the catch. I've got a feeling for the sea, yes. I've been to sea all my life. But today the thrill lies in thinking what those decks are going to look like in a few hours' time. The worry is whether luck is going to be with us this trip, the skill in using some forethought to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And like every other captain of every other ship at sea, the bridge is my permanent home. The sight of another trawler spells fish around to me. To that boy leaning on the rail, instead of getting on with his work, well, I suppose he thinks he's going to skipper it one of these fine days. And so he can, if he keeps hard at it. After a couple more trips, he's due to go off to nautical school. And when he gets back from that, he'll be a full-blown deckhand with full rates of pay. And after 4 years, he can get a crack at taking a mate's ticket. But this is no place for daydreams. It's time to call the hands and to shoot the first trawl. A touch astern to take the way off the ship, then it's away, and the long, tricky business of shooting the trawl begins. The gear we use is designed to operate on the seabed. There's a lot of net to get overboard. For instance, from the mouth to the cod end, which is where the fish are caught, is just about as long as the ship itself. That's why great care has to be taken as the trawl goes into the sea. A bit of carelessness on anybody's part, and your net can very easily get caught up in the propeller. Then you've really had it. A lot of expensive things can happen to nets. And in this middle water fishing, which is what we're doing, this all comes out of the skipper's share of the catch. It's not much use bringing home a catch worth 2,000 or 3,000 pounds if several hundreds have to go out on new nets. There are the otter boys, looking like great dogs. The idea of these is to act like fins on the slow-moving net to keep open the mouth of the trawl. Then the mate and the winchman carefully pay out several hundred fathoms of wire rope, or warp as we call it, as the trawl sinks down to the bed of the sea. I've got my hands full finding out where the fish are, or where I think they're going to be, and this is no time for learner deckhands, future captains or not, to be hanging about my bridge. Radar helps you to know where you are and to go where you think the fish will be. Fish are always hard to find, and no skipper quite knows how he finds them, even after years at the game. Nowadays, a trawler bridge is full of expensive electrical gear to help him. This gadget for scanning the bottom of the sea, in a way, only confirms your own experience and judgment. With any luck, these heavy markings where my pencil is should be shoals of fish. But whether we catch them or not is still going to depend largely on my skill and on my knowledge of what the seabed is like and where the shelves are. I reckon I know this seabed from Fleetwood to Norway as well as others know the roads of their own hometowns. So, for the next 2 or 3 hours, we'll be trawling where I think the fish are. But I won't know whether I'm right or wrong till we get the trawl up. When I want to get the trawl in, I warn the engine room to start up the generators and give us some electrical power for the winches. The charge hand of the watch calls the hands for hauling, and from now on, with any luck, we're going to be busy. Now the lads have got their frocks on, they look a bit more like fishermen. You've got to maneuver your ship so you don't get the warp fouled up. And the first thing is to knock out one clear, so that the net can come in clear of the ship's side and the propeller. There may be as much as 800 fathoms of this warp to come aboard, and you've got to have a good man on the winch. This period, when the nets are coming up, is when the crew and I are just about as tensed up as it's possible to be. Our living depends on what we catch. It's as simple as that. Is it going to be a good bag, or is our luck out? We've all had that experience sometime or other, and we're all in this together. The deckies and the crew get a basic wage, and then on top a percentage of the catch. The captain works only on percentage, and he carries overheads like wear and tear on the nets. And believe me, that can be pretty expensive at times. When you see those bobbins there, you know it won't be long before you know what your catch is like. And with a little experience, you can tell just from the look of the cod end what sort of fish you've got. There's the net, like a great green jellyfish. And there, further off, is the cod end, and the fish are there. And as we get the net aboard, the gulls and the gannets get their pickings. The belly of the net is pulled in by hand over the ship's rail until it reaches the top of the cod end. This gives the deckies the chance to see if the net is damaged as they handle it inboard. If it's torn, we'll be shooting the starboard trawl next time while this one is repaired. Easy and steady does it. The neck of the cod end is then slottled or drawn tight. This makes a compact bag which can be hoisted up and swung inboard easily. Interest perks up all over the ship as the cod end reaches the last stage of its journey. This is the point of it all, this swinging bag of fish. That's why we're out here at sea. Is it going to be worth it? That's the question we all ask as the mate pulls open the knot and releases the fish. Well, there's not as much hake there as I'd like to see, but it's good enough for a start. Once the catch is on board, the next thing is to get the net over the side again for another catch. So I warn the engine room what's happening, and the whole process begins all over again. With the net over the side, and we pay out the warp again. Now the boys have got something to get on with, and as the trawl goes down to the bottom of the sea, we start in on the gutting. We catch all sorts of fish in this middle water fishing. Halibut, skate and cod. But they all taste the same to the seagulls. But human beings are different. And hake is what fetches the best money, so hake is what we're after. From now on, the duty watch is going to be hard at it. Of course, it depends on the sort of catch we brought up. If we get a really big one, the boys may be on it right up until the next one comes aboard. If it's a poor one, they may get a bit of time off. The last trip, we brought back nearly 600 kit of fish, and the kit weighs 10 stone. A good lot of that was hake, too. Well, that's the bright side of fishing. We don't talk about the times when the fish just aren't there. These sloppy things are livers, and they're kept separately on one side. Once gutted, the fish are thoroughly cleaned up before being packed down below in the ice. There go the livers, down into the tank where they'll stay till the end of the trip, and then they're boiled down on shore for oil. As the decks are finally cleared up, the gulls thin out on the water. Gulls, in fact, can tell you at a glance what's going on in a fishing trawler. When they're scarce, there's not much fish about. But as soon as another catch comes inboard and the gutting starts again, every gull within miles around comes for a share of the picking. And so it goes on. Once we've shot out the trawl and the fish start coming aboard, we go on shooting and hauling till the end of the voyage.
Coming from the skipper, it sounds easy enough, but I find it pretty hard work, and there's no let-up. Then, just when I'm having a little sit-down all by myself, old John gives me a fish with 3 eyes. Well, I don't know. I've never seen one like this before. I reckon the old man's pulling me leg. Go on. I know what he's done. He's got an eye from another fish, and he's slipped it under the skin. God, the things they do to a learner decking.
On a good trip, when the ponds are overflowing with fish, it all looks so easy. And housewives on shore, pricing it out on the fishmonger's slabs, don't realize the huge cost of catching this food she likes so much. Well, here are some of them. When this old coal burner was built, she'd have cost about £6,000 altogether. Today, a trawler costs about £1,000 a foot. As most of them are about 120 or 130 odd feet in length, you can see that you won't get much change out of £120,000. In the old days, so long as there was just enough room for the crew to sleep, that's all they bothered about. But today, good living quarters are one of the first things thought of when planning a new ship. Nowadays, in fishing vessels, coal is giving way to these modern diesel engines. In my ship, our engine is like this one, which is being lowered into a new trawler. It gives 900 horsepower, and we reckon to burn about 34 tons of oil on a normal 2-week voyage. It's cheaper, cleaner, and much more efficient than coal burning, but it's still a big expense in the running costs. Coal, apart from anything else, is bulky to carry, and a lot of the room formerly needed can now be taken up with extra fish holes. By the time a trawler's all dressed up for her maiden voyage, she'll be full of all the latest kinds of expensive electrical aids, and with gear and fittings worth many thousands of pounds. Fish and fish alone have to pay for all this. It's no good fighting the times. You've got to operate with modern equipment. The fish you land has to be what the public wants, and if they want it, they must pay a reasonable price for it. Marketing the fish isn't the skipper's job, but a little common sense about the law of supply and demand is all you need. You've got to get your fish to market when the market wants them, not when it happens to suit your own convenience. A learner deckhand, like young Harry Jackson, has got to find out a bit about all this side of things if he set his sights on one day skippering a trawler of his own and landing good big catches like this. As soon as the market is over, the gulls know, and they shove off to sea, unlike the fishing trawlers and their crews. We need at least a couple of days' rest in harbour. Our modern diesel engines are almost trouble-free, but after the sort of pounding they get at sea, they need an occasional overhaul. Then, of course, the trawler has to be refueled and provisions taken on board for the next trip. And parts of the warp get worn, and we have to splice in new pieces every trip as a matter of course. Nets are another heavy item in the cost of fishing. They're expensive to buy in the first place, and a run of bad luck can make a nasty hole in your earnings. So every spare moment at sea, you make sure your nets are checked and repaired and kept in the best possible condition. You use the time when you're steaming from one ground to another for doing this. Every deckhand has to know how to fill a needle and make a net. And this is one of the first things young Harry Jackson must learn.
I quite enjoy this. It makes a change after all the hauling and gutting, and after a few hours of watching how it's done and trying it myself, I find I can do it quite easy. Of course, it isn't all that difficult, I know. Still, I could soon do it. And anyway, there's nothing much else to do. There's just miles and miles of sea all around.
One of the many things an apprentice has to get into his head is that you just don't get your 8 hours sleep. Once the fish are there, it's all a race against time. You can't work to rule on a job like this. Some of our biggest hauls, in fact, are made at night, when the crew just keeps on going. On cups of tea and hurried meals. Nothing matters, so long as there are fish in the net and fish on the deck to be gutted and stowed below in the holds. But if it's hard work, it also means we're catching fish, and that's money in our pockets. So no one minds the long hours.
The longer it goes on, the more you're ready to drop down dead for lack of sleep. As a learner decky, I get let off quite lightly. But watching my tired mates snatching a quick mug of tea, and some of them so done in they fall asleep over their food, I reckon that fishing may be well paid, but we earn every penny of it to the full.
After about 9 days out, we've done well enough to be thinking of going home. It's about this time that I usually ring up the fleet manager on the radio telephone.
Hello, Arthur. We haven't done too badly. How are things your end?
Oh, the markets are pretty average, Jack. When will you be ready to come home?
As soon as you like.
Oh, good. If I was you, I'd get on my way now. That should bring you in on the Friday evening's tide. How's the lad been shaving? Good. Well, see he gets plenty of sleep, or I'll have his mother after me.
Sleep? We've been night fishing especially for his benefit. Well, cheerio, Arthur. See you on Friday.
So we turned for home, hoping for an uneventful end to our voyage. But at sea, you can never count your chickens before they're hatched. Our first scare is a familiar one.
Northerly gale imminent in sea area Faroes. Wind force 7, increasing to gale force 8.
We're well out of that one. Good job we're halfway home.
Now down in the engine room and everywhere else, they'll be cleaning up, and I get a chance to sit down again. Since we began fishing, I don't suppose I've had more than 2 hours sleep in any one spell. But you can never count on things going easy at sea, and I'm not left in peace even now. Here comes Sparks with one more trouble.
Jim, bring her round to north while I set a course to this ship.
For us in Neptune, it couldn't have come at a worse time. However, an SOS cuts across everything else. When another ship needs help and you're anywhere near, you go to its aid. Luckily for us, and our catch, there's another trawler some 50 miles nearer than us, and she signals pretty quickly that she's answering the call right away.
Jim, bring her round. We're going home.
Turn around, skipper.
Hosing down the deck and hatch covers for the last time on a trip and cleaning up the ship on our final day at sea is always okay by me. We'll soon be home now. Our job is just about done. And even the passengers up in the first class begin to think of moving elsewhere. So, with the deck cleaned up, it's our turn next. There's plenty of posh showers and washing places on a fishing trawler nowadays, but I'm afraid we don't use them much, except at the end of a trip. But we always like to go ashore in our best civvies. Well, there's home again. Can't say I'm sorry to see it, even though I'll only be there, if I'm lucky, for 2 whole days. But that's the life. You can keep your factory and your nice posh office. The thing about the sea is, it's good to be going out, and it's even better to be getting back. To find a real welcome from Mum and the girlfriend, and have a bit of money in your pocket you can spend.
We're all of us ready to step ashore as soon as we tie up. We're trawlermen, not fancy sailors, and we're proud of it. Once we've caught the fish and got back to port, our job's finished. You'd never think these lads in their civvies were hard at work gutting fish a few hours ago. Well, that's that trip wrapped up and put away. It's been an easy one this time, but it's not always like that. Not in winter, I can assure you. There go the lads. They've earned their 2 days break and a bit of fun ashore, but they'll be back. As usual, just half an hour before we leave port on our next trip.
About the sea, there is no beginning and no end. Ships may come and ships may go. The hazards of fishing remain as they were. Each generation that grows up and goes to sea must learn to master them afresh.